The air in the grand ballroom of the old mansion was thick with the scent of jasmine and something more intoxicating, something darker. Music swirled around me, a dizzying mix of jazz and laughter, but underneath it all, I felt a strange tension that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I was surrounded by elegantly dressed guests twirling in the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, their faces illuminated by flickering candlelight. Yet, despite the grandeur, a sense of foreboding seeped through the cracks in the opulent facade. "Emily, come dance," my friend Lisa called, her voice bright and carefree as she beckoned me to join her. I could see the joy radiating from her, but I hesitated, feeling an inexplicable urge to step away from the crowd, to seek the source of the unease whispering at my mind. "I'll be right there," I shouted back, forcing a smile as I scanned the room, searching for that strange presence. It felt as if someone was watching me, lurking in the shadows just beyond the flickering light. My heart raced, and I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the feeling. Surely, I was just being paranoid. As I swayed to the rhythm, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses faded into the background. I caught a glimpse of a figure standing just outside the light, near the grand staircase. Their face was obscured, but I could feel their gaze piercing through me. I blinked, and they vanished, swallowed by the darkness. I felt a chill wash over me, and suddenly I didn't want to dance anymore. "Emily?" Lisa's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. "Are you okay? You look pale." "Yeah, I'm fine. Just a bit tired," I lied, forcing a smile as I joined her on the dance floor. But the unease lingered. I danced with Lisa, forcing myself to enjoy the moment, but my thoughts kept drifting back to that figure. The music swelled, and I lost myself in the moment, but every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel those eyes on me, watching, waiting. Hours slipped by in a blur of laughter and music. I decided to step outside for some air, hoping to clear my head. The night was cool, the moon a bright sentinel watching over the decadent chaos within the mansion. I leaned against the cool stone wall, breathing deeply, when suddenly the world around me began to spin. I stumbled, feeling as if the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Then, darkness enveloped me. I awoke with a start, my heart racing, and the remnants of the party clawing at the edges of my memory. The room around me was dimly lit, filled with shadows that danced along the walls like phantoms. I sat up, my body aching, and that's when I saw them. Strange marks etched on my skin, like the ghostly fingerprints of a specter. They were cold, unyielding, and I felt a shiver run down my spine as I traced them with trembling fingers. "What happened?" I whispered to myself, panic rising within me. The memories of the night before were a chaotic jumble, each piece slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. I couldn't remember how I got here or why I felt so different. Climbing out of bed, I stumbled to the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide with confusion and fear. I felt a surge of nausea as I realized the marks were not just on my arms. They snaked down my sides, trailing across my collarbone. I gripped the sink, trying to steady myself, but the cold porcelain felt foreign and unsettling. I needed answers. I had to get out of here. I threw on a jacket and rushed out of the mansion, the echoes of the party still lingering in the air, taunting me with their memories. The streets of New Orleans were alive, the sounds of jazz spilling from nearby bars and the laughter of revelers filling the night. But I felt like a ghost, drifting through a world that no longer seemed to belong to me. I stumbled into a local bar, the dim lighting and smoky atmosphere wrapping around me like a comforting cloak. The bartender, a grizzled man with silver hair and a knowing smile, looked up as I approached. "What'll it be, miss?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. "Do you have any coffee?" I replied, my voice shaky. I needed something to ground me, to pull me back from the edge of confusion. "Coming right up," he said, filling a cup and sliding it across the bar. I took a grateful sip, the warmth spreading through me, but my thoughts were still a tempest. "Are you all right?" he asked, eyeing me closely. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," I muttered. I need help. I don't know what happened last night." The bartender raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You're not the first one to come in here looking for answers. This city has a way of keeping its secrets." "Secrets?" My heart raced. "What do you mean?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "The old mansions, the parties. They're not just for show. Some people dabble in things they shouldn't. You might want to steer clear of that world. I swallowed hard, a chill creeping up my spine. I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was entangled in something far more sinister than I understood. I need someone to help me figure this out, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. Try Ryan, he replied, nodding towards the back of the bar. He's an investigator. He's seen a lot of strange things in this city. He might be able to help you. I turned to see a man sitting in the shadows, his face partially obscured by the low light. He had an air of mystery about him, and I felt drawn to him, as if he possessed the answers I so desperately sought. Thank you, I said, clutching the coffee cup tightly as I made my way to him. Mind if I join you? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He looked up, his deep-set eyes searching mine. Sure. What brings you here at this hour? I took a deep breath, my heart pounding as I prepared to reveal the chaos that had unfolded in my life. I experienced something last night, something I can't explain, and I think it has to do with my family. He studied me, and I could see the flicker of understanding in his gaze. Family secrets can be heavy burdens to bear. What happened? I hesitated, the weight of my words hanging in the air. I woke up with strange marks on my body. I don't remember anything from the party, but I feel like I'm being pulled into something dark. I need help to figure this out. Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms as he considered my words. You're not the first person to stumble into something like this. Sometimes the past has a way of catching up with us. I don't know where else to turn, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared. Fear can be a powerful motivator, he said, his tone firm yet gentle. I'll help you, but you need to be prepared for what we might uncover. The truth can be more terrifying than the darkness itself. I nodded, a sense of resolve building within me. If there was a chance to understand what was happening, I would take it. I couldn't let the shadows of my past consume me. The dim light of Ryan's office flickered as I entered, a musty smell lingering in the air, heavy with the weight of forgotten secrets. The room was cluttered with stacks of papers, photographs, and old case files that seemed to whisper their own stories. I felt a chill run down my spine, an echo of the unease that had plagued me since that fateful night at the party. Take a seat, Ryan said, his voice steady, breaking the silence that felt almost sacred. He gestured to a worn leather chair that creaked as I settled into it. Let's see if we can piece together what happened. I nodded, my heart racing. I don't even know where to start. All I remember is dancing, and then nothing. My voice trembled as I recalled the heavy air of that night, the inexplicable sensation of being watched. Ryan leaned forward, his deep-set eyes studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. We need to explore your family history. Sometimes the past has a way of revealing itself when you least expect it. He pulled out a folder marked with my last name and began sifting through the contents. As he laid the photographs on the desk, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. There was one picture that caught my eye, an old black-and-white image of a woman who looked strikingly familiar. Her dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, and her piercing eyes seemed to stare right through me. That's your grandmother, isn't it? Ryan asked, noticing my reaction. Yes, I breathed, feeling a strange connection to the woman in the photograph. I've seen her in family albums, but I never knew much about her. Just whispers of things. Ryan picked up another piece of paper, a faded newspaper clipping. Your grandmother was rumored to have dabbled in the occult, particularly in voodoo and other forms of magic. There were stories about her holding gatherings, performing rituals. I swallowed hard. Rituals? What kind of rituals? He met my gaze, his expression serious. Rituals that could invoke spirits, perhaps even dark forces. People in the neighborhood talked about her, especially after she vanished. Some believed she made a pact for power. A shiver coursed through me. Power? At what cost? I don't know yet, he replied, leaning back in his chair, the tension in the room palpable. But we need to find out. It might be the key to understanding what happened to you. As he spoke, an overwhelming sense of déjà vu washed over me. The room felt like a warped reflection of my childhood home, filled with family artifacts and memories that seemed to linger just out of reach. I remember my mother mentioning a diary, a family diary. It was supposed to hold secrets about our lineage. Ryan's eyes lit up with intrigue. If we can find that diary, it might shed light on everything. It could be hidden in your home. I nodded fervently, my heart racing at the thought. I'll go look for it. It has to be there. Let's not waste time, Ryan urged, rising from his seat. We can drive to your place now. I'll help you search. As we made our way to my house, the streets of New Orleans blurred past us, the warm night air heavy with the scent of magnolia and a hint of mystery. My mind raced, imagining what the diary might reveal, and a part of me dreaded the truth it could hold. When we arrived, the familiar creak of the front door sent a wave of nostalgia crashing over me. The house was dimly lit, shadows dancing along the walls as I led Ryan through the cluttered living room. The diary should be in the attic, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Lead the way, he replied, his tone encouraging. Ascending the creaky staircase felt like climbing into another world, one filled with echoes of laughter and sorrow. As I reached the attic door, I hesitated, my hand resting on the knob. What if I find something I'm not ready to confront? Ryan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You're not alone in this. His words ignited a flicker of courage within me. I opened the door, and the musty scent of old wood and forgotten memories enveloped us. Dust motes floated in the air, illuminated by the dim light of a single bulb. I began rummaging through boxes, pushing aside old clothes and trinkets that had long been buried. It has to be here, I muttered, my fingers trembling as I dug deeper. Look for anything that seems out of place, Ryan suggested, his voice steady. Sometimes the most important things are hidden in plain sight. After what felt like an eternity, I spotted a small, ornate box tucked away in the corner, its surface adorned with strange symbols. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing a collection of letters and photographs, but no diary. Disappointment washed over me, but I refused to give up. Keep looking, Ryan encouraged, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of my emotions. Finally, buried beneath a pile of faded fabric, I uncovered a worn, leather-bound book. My breath caught in my throat as I held it up, the cover embossed with a symbol I recognized from Ryan's earlier research. This is it. This is the diary. Ryan stepped closer, his eyes widening in anticipation. Let's see what secrets it holds. We settled onto the dusty floor, and I carefully opened the diary, its pages yellowed with age. Each word felt like a pulse, resonating with the energy of the past. As I began to read, the stories of my ancestors unfolded before me, tales of love, betrayal, and darkness that had woven themselves into the very fabric of our family. Listen to this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It talks about a gathering, a ritual held under the full moon. My grandmother believed that by invoking the spirits, she could protect our family from a curse. Ryan leaned in closer, captivated. A curse? What did she mean by that? I flipped through the pages, searching for more details. It's vague, but it mentions a sacrifice. Something must have gone wrong. Ryan's expression turned serious. We need to understand what that sacrifice was. It could be the key to everything. Just as I was about to continue reading, a sudden chill filled the attic, causing the hairs on the back of my neck to stand on end. I glanced at Ryan, and he looked equally unsettled. Did you feel that? I asked, my voice trembling. He nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the dimly lit room. Something isn't right. Let's get out of here for now. We can come back later. Reluctantly, I closed the diary, the weight of its secrets heavy in my hands. As we descended the stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, the shadows lurking just beyond our reach. Once outside, the cool night air washed over me, a brief respite from the oppressive atmosphere of the attic. We need to go to the city library tomorrow, Ryan said, his tone resolute. If your grandmother was involved in something as dark as this, we need to uncover the truth. I nodded, my heart pounding with anticipation and dread. I just hope we're ready for what we might find. As we drove away, the weight of my family's past loomed over me like a dark cloud, and I couldn't help but wonder if uncovering the truth would lead to salvation or damnation. But there was no turning back now. The journey had only just begun. The library was vast, a labyrinth of dusty bookshelves stretching up towards a ceiling I could barely see. The smell of old paper and leather bindings filled the air, a scent that was oddly comforting amidst the chaos swirling in my mind. As we stepped inside, the fluorescent lights flickered, casting strange shadows that danced across the wooden floors. I felt a shiver run down my spine, an instinctive warning that something was amiss. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Ryan asked, his voice low, almost a whisper, as if he feared disturbing the ghosts that might linger in the stacks. I turned to him, his deep-set eyes filled with concern, and nodded. "I need to know the truth about my family," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Whatever it takes." He led the way down the aisles, his fingers trailing along the spines of books until he stopped in front of a section labeled Local History. He pulled out a thick tome, the cover worn and cracked. "This might help," he said, placing it on a nearby table. "It's about the history of New Orleans and its families. Your family is mentioned here." I joined him, flipping through the pages until I found a reference to my grandmother. "Here," I said, pointing to a faded photograph of a woman who looked strikingly similar to me. "That's her." Ryan leaned in closer, examining the image. "What does it say?" I read aloud, my heart racing. Margaret LaRue was rumored to have been involved in the occult, known for her beauty and charisma. She disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 1945, shortly after a series of strange occurrences plagued the neighborhood. "Strange occurrences?" Ryan echoed, intrigued. "What kind of occurrences?" "People reported seeing shadows moving at night, whispers in the dark, and some claimed they felt an overwhelming sense of dread whenever they passed her home," I said, trying to suppress the growing unease in my stomach. "It's just like what happened at the party." Ryan's brow furrowed. "We need to dig deeper. There must be more information about her and the events surrounding her disappearance." As we continued to search, I felt a strange sensation creeping over me, like a cold breath at my neck. I glanced over my shoulder but saw only the empty library, its silence heavy and suffocating. "Do you ever get the feeling that we're being watched?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes," he admitted, his gaze darting around the room. "But we're here for a reason. Let's focus." Hours seemed to slip by as we pored over old newspapers and records. Each article unveiled more about my family's history, tales of betrayal, secrets, and a legacy steeped in darkness. I couldn't shake the feeling that the deeper we dug, the more we awakened something that had long been buried. "Look at this," Ryan said suddenly, his voice tinged with excitement. He held up a newspaper clipping dated back to the 1940s. "This article mentions a disappearance linked to your grandmother's name. A young girl vanished a week before she did." "What? Who was she?" I leaned closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "According to this, her name was Alice Dupree. She was last seen outside your grandmother's house," he said, scanning the rest of the article. "They say Margaret had strange rituals and that Alice was somehow involved." I felt a chill run through me. "Involved? In what way?" Ryan flipped the page, revealing more details. "It doesn't say, but there are hints that Alice's disappearance may have been connected to some sort of ritual." "Ritual?" The word hung in the air, heavy with implications. I recalled the strange markings on my body, the feeling of being pulled into something beyond my comprehension. "Do you think that's what happened to me?" "It's possible." Ryan's expression turned serious. "But we need to find out more. There's something more to this story." Just then, an elderly woman approached us, her frail figure barely making a sound as she approached. Her eyes were sharp and piercing, and I felt a shiver run down my spine as she drew nearer. "You're searching for the truth, aren't you?" she asked, her voice raspy yet commanding. I exchanged glances with Ryan, unsure how to respond. "We're looking into my family's history," I ventured cautiously. "Don't dig too deep, child," she warned, leaning closer. "The dead do not rest when their secrets are buried. They will come for you, just as they came for her." She pointed a bony finger at me, her gaze unwavering. "Who are you talking about?" I pressed, curiosity mingling with fear. "Alice, Margaret, they're all tied to the darkness of this place," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Your family carries burdens that are not meant to be disturbed. Leave it be, or you may find yourself in their company." "Wait, what do you know about my grandmother?" I demanded, feeling a sense of urgency. But before she could respond, the old woman turned and shuffled away, disappearing into the shadows of the library. I felt a sense of loss at her departure, as if she held the answers I desperately needed. "Emily, we can't let this go," Ryan said, determination etched on his face. "We need to find out what she knows, and we need to understand the connection between your grandmother and Alice." I nodded, my resolve strengthening. "You're right, let's keep looking." We spent the rest of the afternoon in a frenzy of research, each new piece of information feeding the fire of my curiosity and fear. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the library floor, I stumbled upon a dusty old ledger. Carefully, I opened it, my heart racing as I scanned the delicate handwriting. "Ryan, come look at this," I called, feeling a sense of urgency. "This ledger belonged to my grandmother." He rushed to my side, peering over my shoulder. "What does it say?" "It's filled with names, people from the neighborhood, all linked in some way to her," I said, tracing a finger over the faded ink. "And here, there are notes about rituals, dates, and sacrifices." Ryan's expression hardened. "Sacrifices? This is getting darker than we thought." "I know, but look, there's a passage about a ritual performed during a full moon. It mentions a connection to someone named Alice." I felt my breath hitch in my throat. It seems like my grandmother was trying to protect her. "Protect her from what?" Ryan asked, his eyes narrowing as he studied the ledger. "From whatever darkness she believed was pursuing them," I replied, feeling a sense of dread creep in. "But now it's like that darkness is reaching for me." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the library, making us both jump. The shelves rattled, and for a moment I could have sworn I felt a chill sweep through the room. "Did you hear that?" I glanced around, my heart racing. "Yeah, let's check it out," Ryan said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. As we moved cautiously toward the source of the sound, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist around us, whispering secrets that dared to remain hidden. And somewhere in the depths of my mind, a memory flickered, a flash of a girl's face, a warning in the shadows. "Emily," Ryan said softly, breaking me from my thoughts. "Whatever we find, we'll face it together." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and gratitude. But as we pushed deeper into the library, I knew we were on the edge of something far more dangerous than I had ever anticipated. The air was thick with an unsettling silence as Ryan and I stood outside the grand, decaying mansion that had been the backdrop of my confusion and terror. The flickering porch light cast erratic shadows on the wooden steps, and I felt a chill that ran deeper than the night air. My heart raced as I glanced at Ryan, who wore a mask of determination mixed with apprehension. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked, his voice low but steady. His deep-set eyes searched mine, trying to gauge the resolve behind my fear. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the memories of the party. The laughter, the music, the strange feeling of being watched. "I have to know what happened. I can't let this haunt me any longer," I replied, my voice firmer than I felt. With a nod, Ryan placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, and together we stepped into the darkness of the mansion. The musty smell of age and neglect enveloped us as we crossed the threshold. I could almost hear the whispers of the past echoing through the empty halls, urging me to turn back. But I pressed on, guided by a force I couldn't quite understand. As we made our way through the dimly lit corridors, I felt an odd magnetism pulling me toward the basement. "It's down there," I murmured, almost to myself. Ryan hesitated, glancing toward the staircase that led to the unknown. "Are you sure? It could be dangerous," he warned, his protective instincts flaring. "I need to go," I insisted, the urgency rising within me. "Whatever is down there, it's connected to everything. I can feel it." Reluctantly, Ryan followed me as we descended the creaky steps. The air grew colder with each step, and the darkness closed in around us like a shroud. Flickering, my phone's flashlight revealed cobwebs and dust-laden remnants of a life once vibrant. I shivered, but not entirely from the cold. When we reached the bottom, the beam of light landed on the walls, revealing crude symbols etched into the stone, symbols that made my skin crawl. "What are these?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. Ryan moved closer, his brows furrowing as he examined the markings. "They look like sigils, possibly related to some kind of ritual," he replied. He pulled out his notebook, jotting down his observations. I knelt down to inspect an intricate design, tracing it with my finger. "My grandmother. She was rumored to practice magic. Do you think these could be connected to her?" "Maybe," If she was involved in something dark, this could very well be a part of it. He glanced around, unease creeping into his voice. Let's keep looking. As I stood, my gaze fell upon a dusty trunk in the corner. It looked out of place, almost too pristine among the decay. What's that? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Ryan approached the trunk and brushed off the dust, revealing an ornate latch. Let's see if we can open it. With a gentle tug, the trunk creaked open, revealing a collection of objects shrouded in secrecy. My heart raced as I recognized an old, leather-bound book nestled among the trinkets. This is my grandmother's spell book, I gasped, feeling a rush of connection to the past. Ryan picked it up, handling it with reverence. This could be what we need to understand what happened. These spells, they might provide insight into her practices. I felt a mix of excitement and dread as he opened the book. The pages were filled with delicate handwriting and faded illustrations of various rituals. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the pages, absorbing the information that seemed to pulse with energy. Wait, Ryan said suddenly, his voice tense. Look at this. He pointed to a page adorned with a drawing of a circle surrounded by strange symbols. This one mentions a protection spell. It's often used in rituals to summon spirits. I leaned closer, my heart pounding. Do you think this could explain the presence I felt during the party? Possibly, Ryan said, his brow furrowed in concentration. But we have to be careful. Summoning spirits can have unforeseen consequences. Before I could respond, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing the hairs on the back of my neck to stand on end. I looked around, my breath hitching in my throat. Did you feel that? I asked, my voice shaky. Ryan nodded, his expression serious. It's like the air shifted. Something's here. Suddenly, a shadow flitted across the wall, and I gasped, stumbling backward. Ryan instinctively stepped in front of me, his protective instincts kicking in. Stay behind me, he said, his voice low and steady. Just then, a figure emerged from the darkness, its form indistinct but unmistakably human. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Who are you? I called out, my voice trembling. The figure paused, the shadows swirling around it like a living cloak. The past cannot remain buried, it whispered, a voice both haunting and familiar. My breath caught in my throat as I strained to see the face, but it was obscured by the darkness. What do you want? I asked, fear mingling with an inexplicable pull toward this entity. Secrets, it replied, the word echoing in the stillness. They must be revealed. Before I could process its words, the figure lunged toward us, but as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, leaving only a frigid silence in its wake. I gasped for breath, my heart racing as I turned to Ryan. What just happened? I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head, visibly shaken. I don't know, but whatever that was, it's connected to your family's past. We have to uncover the truth before it's too late. I nodded, determination flooding my veins. Let's keep searching. There has to be more here. With newfound resolve, we continued to sift through the trunk. Among the trinkets, I found a small vial filled with a dark liquid. What do you think this is? I asked, holding it up to the light. Ryan squinted at it. Could be a potion of some sort. We should be careful with it. I nodded, placing it back in the trunk as we continued our investigation. As we rummaged through the items, I felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. Time was running out, and I could sense the weight of the past pressing in on me. Emily, Ryan said suddenly, his voice breaking the tension. I have a feeling we're not alone here. Something isn't right. I can feel it too, I admitted, glancing nervously toward the shadows. We need to hurry. As we turned to leave the basement, a sudden rush of cold air swept past us, extinguishing the light from my phone. The darkness enveloped us, and I felt a wave of panic surging within me. Ryan! I cried out, trying to keep my voice steady. What's happening? Stay close to me, he shouted back, his voice firm despite the chaos around us. Just then, we heard a low growl echoing through the darkness, a sound that sent chills down my spine. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and I clutched Ryan's arm, terrified of what lay just beyond our vision. We need to get out now, I urged, my heart racing. As we stumbled toward the stairs, I felt a presence behind me, a cold breath against my neck that made every nerve in my body scream. Ryan pulled me closer, and together we rushed up the steps, the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. Once we reached the top, We burst into the hallway, gasping for breath. The oppressive atmosphere of the basement lingered in my chest, and I shivered as I glanced back toward the shadows. "What was that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What did we just encounter?" Ryan shook his head, his expression grave. "Whatever it is, it knows about the secrets we're trying to uncover. We have to be careful. We're not safe yet." I nodded, the weight of his words settling heavily in my heart. The truth was out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for us to unravel the mysteries that bound our fates together. The air in the dimly lit room felt thick with tension as I sat across from Ryan, my heart racing with a mix of fear and anticipation. The old book lay open in front of us, its pages yellowed with age and filled with faded ink. Each word seemed to pulse with a life of its own, whispering secrets that beckoned me closer. I could feel a strange energy emanating from it, a pull that both fascinated and terrified me. "Emily, this is more than just a collection of spells," Ryan said, his voice low and thoughtful. He ran his fingers across the intricate symbols etched into the parchment. "This is a record of your grandmother's practices, her rituals and beliefs. We need to be careful with this." I nodded, swallowing hard. The gravity of our discovery weighed heavily on me. I just want to understand what happened that night. Why I woke up with those marks on my body, it has to be connected to her. Ryan glanced at me, his deep-set eyes searching mine. "I know, but diving into this could unleash things we're not prepared for. Magic, especially the kind your grandmother dabbled in, doesn't always play by the rules." A chill ran down my spine at his words. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were treading on sacred ground, one that had been disturbed long ago. "What if we can find a way to control it, to use it to protect ourselves? Or it could consume us," he countered, a hint of concern lining his brow. "We need to understand what these rituals are before we attempt anything." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. "Let's start with the invocations. There has to be something in here that can shed light on what she was trying to achieve." As I flipped through the pages, a passage caught my eye. It described a ritual of protection, detailing the steps needed to create a barrier against malevolent forces. My heart raced with a mix of hope and dread. "Ryan, look at this. It talks about creating a protective circle. Maybe this can help us." He leaned in closer, his brow furrowing as he read the words. "It requires specific items, candles, herbs, a personal token from the person being protected, and a chant." His voice trailed off and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "Do you think we can gather those things?" I asked, my excitement bubbling over. "If we could just create a barrier, it might keep whatever's haunting me at bay." Ryan hesitated, his expression serious. "It's possible, but we need to be cautious. If we do this, we must follow the instructions exactly. Any deviation could have unintended consequences." "Unintended consequences." I echoed his words, the weight of them settling over me like a shroud. Isn't that what we're already facing? We're in the middle of this mess anyway. I'd rather take a risk than sit here and wait for something worse to happen. His gaze softened, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "I get that, Emily, but I don't want to put you in danger. We still don't fully understand what we're dealing with." I reached across the table, placing my hand over his. "I trust you, Ryan. We're in this together. I can't do this without you." He squeezed my hand, and for a fleeting moment, I felt a connection between us, a shared purpose that transcended our fear. "Okay, let's do it. We'll gather the items and prepare for the ritual, but we need to be ready for anything." "Anything," I repeated, a shiver of excitement coursing through me. I could feel the threads of fate weaving around us, binding our destinies together. Over the next few days, we scoured local shops and markets, gathering the components necessary for the ritual. Each item felt like a piece of a puzzle, drawing us closer to the truth. As we collected candles made of beeswax, bundles of dried herbs, and personal tokens, little trinkets that held meaning for me, I could feel the weight of my family's history pressing down on me, urging me to uncover the secrets that lay buried. One evening, as we sat on the floor of Ryan's small office surrounded by our findings, I pulled out the small locket that had belonged to my grandmother. "This was hers," I said softly, holding it up for him to see. The locket was tarnished, but the intricate design still held a certain elegance. "I've kept it all these years, hoping to find out more about her." Ryan looked at it thoughtfully before taking it from my hands. It's perfect. We'll use this as your personal token. It'll help anchor the ritual to you. I smiled faintly, feeling a sense of connection to my grandmother that I had never experienced before. Do you think she knew what she was doing? That she was playing with forces she couldn't control? I think she was trying to protect something. Ryan replied, his voice low. Maybe even you. There's a lot of power in family legacies, both good and bad. As the night deepened, we prepared the items in a makeshift circle on the floor, each piece holding its own significance. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on the walls, creating an ambiance that felt both intimate and eerie. I could feel the air growing heavier, charged with anticipation. Are you ready? Ryan asked, his voice steady but laced with uncertainty. I nodded, my heart pounding, as ready as I'll ever be. With a deep breath, Ryan began to recite the incantation from the book, his voice steady and strong. I joined him, our words weaving together in a rhythm that echoed through the room. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to come alive around us. But as we reached the climax of the ritual, something shifted in the air. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles in an instant. Darkness enveloped us, and I felt a bone-deep chill that made my skin crawl. What's happening? I gasped, panic rising in my throat. I don't know, Ryan shouted, his eyes wide with fear as he fumbled for the flashlight we had brought. Stay close to me. The shadows seemed to pulse and writhe, and I could have sworn I heard whispers, voices that echoed with anger and sorrow. My heart raced as I felt a presence looming behind us, something dark and malevolent. Ryan, I cried out, gripping his arm. We need to stop. We have to end this. But before we could break the circle, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette that sent shards of terror racing through me. It was a shape I recognized from my nightmares, a manifestation of the fears I had tried so hard to bury. Emily, the voice hissed, echoing around us. You should not have disturbed what was buried. The past does not forget. I felt the weight of the words settle over me, a suffocating reminder of the secrets that were clawing their way back to the surface. What do you want? I shouted into the void, desperation spilling from my lips. The figure laughed, a sound that chilled me to my core. I want you to remember. I want you to understand the price of your grandmother's power. With a surge of instinct, I reached for the locket around my neck, holding it tightly in my hand. You can't take me back. I won't let you. In that moment, I felt a surge of determination rise within me. I was not just a victim of my family's past. I was a part of it, and I had the power to confront it. Ryan, we have to end this, I shouted, my voice breaking through the oppressive darkness. We have to break the circle. Together, we broke the incantation, our voices trembling but resolute. The figure shrieked, a sound that pierced through the night, and the shadows began to recede. As the darkness lifted, I gasped for air, my heart racing. What had we unleashed? And what other secrets lay waiting in the shadows? In that moment, I knew we had only scratched the surface of something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. The air was thick with tension as Ryan and I sat in his dimly lit office, the flickering light casting long shadows on the walls. Papers strewn across the desk held the weight of secrets long buried. I could feel the gravity of our situation pressing down on me, a palpable reminder of the darkness that surrounded my family. I can't shake the feeling that we're getting closer to something, I said, my fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim of my glass. But with every answer we find, more questions arise. Ryan leaned back in his chair, his gaze intense and focused. It's like peeling an onion, he replied, his voice low and steady. Every layer reveals more complexity, and it seems like there's more at stake than we initially realized. I sighed, recalling the disorienting events of the past few days. The marks on my body, the haunting remnants of the ritual I couldn't remember, and the growing sense of urgency that accompanied each revelation. Do you think my grandmother was truly involved in something sinister? From what I've gathered, it's more complicated than that, Ryan replied, his brow furrowing in thought. She might have dabbled in magic, but it's likely she was trying to protect her family. The stories about her are intertwined with fear and misunderstanding. Fear and misunderstanding, I echoed, the weight of his words settling in my chest. But what if she did something terrible? What if I'm inheriting more than just her legacy? Ryan's eyes softened, and he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. You're not alone in this, Emily. Whatever happened in the past, we have to face it together. We'll uncover the truth, no matter how dark it may be. I nodded, but the shadows of doubt loomed large in my mind. That night, as I lay in bed, I pulled out the old family diary I had retrieved from my grandmother's belongings. Its pages were yellowed and frayed, filled with elegant cursive that spoke of love, loss, and a history I barely understood. I flipped through the pages, searching for something, anything, that might provide clarity. Then I found it. A passage that sent chills down my spine. Sacrifices must be made for the sake of power. The price of knowledge is steep, and the darkness will always demand its due. I felt a shiver race down my spine, and I closed my eyes trying to process the implications of those words. My heart raced as I recalled Ryan's mention of a sacrifice. What did that mean for me? For us? The next day, I met Ryan at the local cafe, the aroma of coffee mingling with the sweet scent of pastries. He was already seated, a steaming cup in front of him, his expression serious. Emily, he began, his tone urgent. I've found something. He slid a manila folder across the table, and I opened it to reveal a series of photographs and documents, the edges worn and yellowed. What is this? I asked, my heart pounding. It's a recording of an old interview with your mother, he said, his voice steady. She mentioned a sacrifice, something that could be crucial to understanding your family's history. I felt a knot form in my stomach. A sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice? Ryan leaned in closer, his expression grave. I don't know yet, but it seems tied to the events surrounding your grandmother. If we can find that recording, we might discover more about what she meant. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing down on me. You think it's linked to what happened during the party? To the ritual? Possibly, Ryan said, his eyes searching mine. Whatever happened there, it seems to stem from a long line of choices made by the women in your family. And those choices have consequences. I felt a surge of anger and frustration. Why can't they just tell us? Why do we have to dig through this mess of secrets? Because sometimes the truth is too painful to confront, Ryan replied softly. But we're not them. We have to be brave enough to face it. As I pondered his words, a sense of determination began to swell within me. Let's find that recording, I said, my voice firm. I need to know what my mother knew. We spent the next few days scouring through archives, speaking to local historians, and piecing together clues. Each lead felt like a thread, pulling us deeper into the tapestry of my family's dark history. Finally, we tracked down a lead to an old radio station that had conducted the interview. The station manager was hesitant, but after some persuasion from Ryan, he agreed to let us listen to the recording in the back room. As we settled into the small, cramped space, the faint hum of machinery surrounded us. Ryan pressed play, and the scratchy voice of my mother filled the room. I never wanted this life for my daughter, she began, her tone a mix of regret and sorrow. But there are things you must understand. Sacrifices must be made. My breath caught in my throat as I listened, hanging on to every word. We made a deal, my mother and I, to protect the family, but it came at a cost. I thought I could keep her safe from it all, but... The recording crackled and a sense of dread washed over me. What did you do? I whispered, glancing at Ryan, who was equally entranced. I thought I could shield her from the past, my mother continued, her voice trembling with emotion. But the darkness, it doesn't let go easily. It demands its due, and I fear I've set her on a path I can't control. I felt tears prick my eyes as a flood of emotions surged through me, confusion, anger, and a deep-seated sense of betrayal. What did you mean? What did you sacrifice? I murmured, my heart racing. Ryan reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. We'll figure this out, he assured me. This recording is a key. We just need to decode what she meant. As the interview continued, my mother spoke of my grandmother's struggles, her attempts to protect her family from a fate intertwined with magic and darkness. It's all connected, she said. The rituals, the power. It's a cycle, and if you're not careful, it will consume you. When the recording finally ended, silence enveloped us. I felt as though I had been thrust into a storm, the winds of fate howling around me. What does this mean for us? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ryan looked at me, his expression resolute. It means we need to confront the past. We can't let it dictate our future. But we have to be prepared for what we might find. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the journey ahead. I won't let the shadows of my family's past dictate my life, I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. Together, we'll uncover the truth, no matter how painful it may be. As we left the station, I felt an unshakable sense of purpose rising within me. The darkness had its grip on me, but I was determined to break free. The echoes of my family's past would not consume me. Instead, I would face them head-on and emerge stronger. With Ryan by my side, I felt a newfound resolve. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would confront them together. And in the depths of the shadows, I would find my light. As rain pounded against the windows, an ominous rhythm that mirrored the turmoil in my heart. Ryan and I had spent the last few days delving deeper into the secrets of my family, but now it felt like we were being watched, hunted. I glanced at Ryan, who was pacing the room, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "We can't keep doing this," he said, his voice strained. "Someone's onto us. I can feel it." I nodded, though my stomach churned with anxiety. "You think it's because of what we found out about my mother? The recording?" "Maybe. Or maybe it's because of your grandmother's past. Whatever the reason, we need to be cautious." He stopped, looking at me with a seriousness that made my heart race. "We can't let them silence us." I swallowed hard, remembering the sensation of being watched, the feeling of icy fingers creeping up my spine. "You're right, but what do we do now?" Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. We both froze, our eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the storm outside. Ryan nodded, his expression tense. "Stay here," he said, moving towards the door. "Wait." I grabbed his arm, panic rising in my throat. "I can't just sit here while you go out there." He hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, but stay close." With a deep breath, we crept towards the source of the noise. The dim light from the hallway flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced along the walls. I could feel the weight of the air change, thick with something sinister. "What if it's—" I began, but Ryan cut me off. "Let's just find out what it is. We'll figure it out together." As we approached the back door, the wind howled outside, a mournful wail that sent chills through my body. Ryan slowly opened the door, revealing a darkened yard, illuminated only by flashes of lightning. "Nothing," he whispered, peering into the night. But before I could respond, a figure lunged from the shadows, crashing into Ryan with a force that knocked him to the ground. "Ryan!" I screamed, rushing forward, but the figure was quick, turning towards me with a menacing glare. "Stay back," it growled, its voice low and gravelly. I could barely make out its features in the dim light, but the glint of a knife caught my eye. "Who are you?" I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. "What do you want?" "Silence," the figure hissed, advancing towards me. I felt a surge of adrenaline, my instincts kicking in. I couldn't let this person hurt Ryan, or me. In a split second, I grabbed a nearby flower pot and hurled it at the intruder. It shattered against the wall, causing the figure to momentarily stumble. "Run!" I yelled at Ryan, who was still trying to regain his footing. He nodded, scrambling to his feet. "Go!" He shoved me towards the house, and we both darted inside, slamming the door behind us. "Call the police," I urged, my voice trembling as I grabbed my phone. But as I looked around, I realized there was no time. The figure was already pounding on the door, a relentless rhythm that echoed through the room. "Emily, we need to barricade the door," Ryan shouted, glancing nervously at the window. I nodded, rushing to the nearest piece of furniture, a heavy bookshelf, and together we pushed it against the door. "Do you think it'll hold?" I panted, my heart racing. "It has to," he replied, his eyes scanning the room. "We need to find something to defend ourselves with." I grabbed a candlestick from the coffee table, its weight comforting in my hand. "What about you?" I asked, my voice low. "Just stay close to me," he said, his gaze fixed on the door. "That's all we need." The pounding grew louder, the intruder growing more aggressive. "Let me in!" it roared, the voice twisted with anger. "You can't hide from the truth." "What does that even mean?" I muttered, my mind racing. "What truth?" "I don't know, but we can't let them in," Ryan replied, moving to the window to peek outside. "We have to find a way out of here." As he turned back to me, I could see the fear etched on his face. What if this is about your family? What if they want to silence us before we can expose whatever it is your grandmother did? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. We can't let that happen. We have to fight back. Suddenly, the intruder's voice cut through the air again. You think you can escape the past? You're just like her. You'll never be free. Who are you talking about? I shouted, my anger rising. What do you want from us? Your blood. The figure shrieked, its voice filled with rage. It's all about the bloodline. Ryan turned to me, confusion and concern in his eyes. Emily, what does that mean? I stammered, trying to piece together the fragments of my family's history. It could be about the rituals, the sacrifices, but why? Before I could finish, the bookshelf began to tremble as the figure slammed into the door again, harder this time. You can't hide forever, it yelled. The truth will come out, and it will claim what is rightfully theirs. Get ready. Ryan urged, positioning himself in front of me, the candlestick gripped tightly in his hand. If they get through, we fight. I nodded, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I'm ready. With a final, thunderous crash, the door gave way, and the shadowy figure surged into the room, its eyes wild and desperate. Ryan swung the candlestick, but the figure dodged, lunging towards me with a swift motion. Emily! Ryan shouted, but in that moment, everything felt like slow motion. I raised the candlestick, ready to defend myself, but a burst of cold air washed over me, causing me to shudder. The figure's face twisted into a grotesque snarl, its mouth moving as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, a deep, unnatural chill filled the room, freezing me in place. Get away from her, Ryan yelled, pushing me behind him. He lunged at the figure, but it was like trying to grasp smoke. It slipped away, disappearing into the darkness. I gasped, my heart racing as the shadow flickered in and out of existence. What is happening? I cried, feeling my legs weaken beneath me. It's not just a person, it's something else, Ryan said, his voice strained as he tried to catch his breath. We have to get out of here, now. But before we could make a move, the figure reappeared, closer this time, its icy fingers reaching out towards me. I felt a chill run down my spine as it whispered, "The past never dies, Emily." In that moment, panic surged through me. Ryan! I screamed, but the words barely escaped my lips as the shadow lunged forward, enveloping me in a suffocating darkness. I felt Ryan's presence slip away, and the world around me faded into a whirlwind of confusion and fear. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, the darkness receded, leaving me gasping for air. I stumbled back, disoriented, my heart racing as I searched for Ryan. "Ryan?" I called, my voice echoing in the silence. "Where are you?" But the only response was the echo of my own voice, and the realization that whatever had been unleashed was far from over. The silence in the dimly lit basement of the mansion felt oppressive, a heavy shroud that threatened to suffocate me. Ryan and I stood frozen, staring at the swirling shadows that danced along the walls, remnants of the unease that had followed us since we started this nightmarish investigation. I could feel the air grow colder, the temperature plummeting, as if the very essence of the house was alive and aware of our presence. Suddenly, a chilling gust swept through the room, and from the corner of my vision I glimpsed a figure emerging from the shadows. It was translucent, a wisp of sorrow and anger intertwined, and its eyes, oh, those eyes seemed to bore into my soul. I gasped, stumbling backward, but Ryan steadied me with a firm grip. "Emily, whatever it is, we need to face it," he whispered, his voice low and steady, but I could hear the tremor beneath his calm facade. The spirit materialized fully before us, its form shifting and swirling like smoke. A voice echoed around us, resonating with an ancient power that sent chills down my spine. "You seek the truth, but the truth carries a price," it intoned, its voice both haunting and mesmerizing. "What do you want?" I managed to croak, my heart racing. "What do you want from me?" "I am bound to this place, tied to the secrets of your bloodline," the spirit replied, its gaze piercing into mine. "You must choose, Emily. Will you redeem the past or continue to bury it beneath layers of lies?" I glanced at Ryan, his face pale but resolute. "What does it mean?" I asked him, my voice trembling. "What does it mean to redeem the past?" Ryan took a deep breath, his eyes lingering on the spirit. "It means confronting the truth, no matter how painful it is. It means understanding why this spirit is here and what it represents. Your family has hidden something for generations, and now it's time to face it." The spirit seemed to draw closer, its cold presence wrapping around me like a frigid blanket. "You must face your grandmother's legacy, Emily," it whispered, "for she is not the villain you have been led to believe. She sought to protect you from a curse that runs deeper than you can imagine." A rush of memories flooded my mind. My grandmother's stern face, the rumors of her practicing dark magic, the whispers of betrayal and vengeance. I had always thought of her as a witch, a villain in my family's story. But now, confronted by this spectral figure, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Was she really a protector, or merely a pawn in a more sinister game? "Why didn't she tell me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why did she leave me in the dark?" "Your mother feared the truth more than the darkness itself," the spirit replied, its voice a mournful echo that seemed to resonate with my own sorrow. "She believed that by hiding it, she could protect you. But secrets fester, Emily. They taint the soul and bind the living to the past." I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. "So, it's all her fault," I snapped, my emotions swirling like a tempest. "She kept me from knowing who I really am." "Your mother's choices were born from love, but love can be blinding," the spirit said, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. "You must understand her burdens. Only then can you break the cycle." "What do you want me to do?" I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. "How can I redeem a past I barely know?" "Confront the truth, embrace the darkness, and accept your heritage," the spirit urged. "You hold the key to unraveling the curse that has plagued your family for generations, but you must be willing to sacrifice your fear and face the shadows head-on." As I stood there, the weight of its words sank into my bones. My heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. I thought of Ryan, who had stood by me through every revelation, every terrifying moment. "What if I can't do it?" I whispered, doubt creeping in. "You can," Ryan said firmly, taking my hand in his. "We'll face this together. You're stronger than you think, Emily." A moment of silence stretched between us, and I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. "What if I choose to redeem the past?" I asked the spirit, my voice steadying. "What does that entail?" "Face the memories buried within you," it said, its voice softening. "Unravel the web of deceit that ensnares your family. Only then can you break the chains binding you to the past." "Then I will," I declared, feeling a sense of purpose washing over me. "I will confront the truth and redeem my family's legacy." The spirit's eyes glimmered with approval, and it began to fade, the shadows retreating. "Remember, the path to redemption is fraught with danger. Trust in yourself and do not shy away from the darkness. It is part of who you are." As the last remnants of the dissipated, I turned to Ryan, finding strength in his unwavering gaze. "We need to find out what my grandmother did, what she was protecting us from." "Let's start with the diary," Ryan suggested, his voice filled with determination. "There might be more clues in there about your family's past and the choices they made." I nodded, the weight of the spirit's revelation pushing me forward. "Right. We need to know everything, even if it hurts." As we ascended the creaking stairs back into the dim light of the main floor, I felt a sense of clarity forming in my mind. I was no longer just a victim of circumstance. I was a part of this legacy, a thread woven into the dark tapestry of my family's story, and I would uncover every secret, no matter how painful it might be. "Together," Ryan said, squeezing my hand as we moved toward the living room, the flickering candles casting long shadows. "Together," I echoed, my resolve solidifying with each step. The truth awaited us, and I was ready to confront it, to face the shadows of my past, and to reclaim my family's legacy. The air in Ryan's office was thick with tension as he leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. The flickering light from the desk lamp cast shadows across the room, mirroring the uncertainty swirling in my mind. "Emily," he began, his voice low and serious, "I've found something that changes everything." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean? More about the curse?" He nodded slowly, the weight of his words palpable. "Yes, I was digging through some old records and I came across references to a ritual that could potentially break the family curse. It's not just about the past, it requires a personal sacrifice." "A sacrifice?" My voice trembled. "What kind of sacrifice?" Ryan looked away, his gaze fixed on a point in the distance. "It varies, but it often means giving up something very dear to you. It could be a memory, a connection, or even a part of yourself. I felt a chill run down my spine, my mind racing with the implications. But what if that sacrifice is too much? What if it costs me everything? He turned to me, his expression softening. We have to face our fears, Emily. Whatever is haunting us won't just fade away. We have to confront it head on. I took a deep breath, the weight of his words settling heavily on my chest. So, what do we do next? Ryan leaned forward, urgency in his voice. We need to gather more information. There's something hidden in your family's past that we haven't uncovered yet. We need to talk to your mother again, if she's willing. She might hold the key to understanding how to break this curse. I shook my head, feeling a sense of dread creeping in. She's not going to want to talk about it. She spent her whole life trying to keep the past buried. But if we can't get her to open up, we might not have any chance of breaking this curse, he insisted, determination lacing his words. And the longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes. Just then, the door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through the room, rattling the papers strewn across Ryan's desk. I glanced back to see the old woman from the library standing in the doorway, her presence sending a shiver down my spine. Speak of the devil, Ryan muttered under his breath. The woman's eyes bore into mine, filled with a knowing intensity. You are in grave danger, child. The spirits are restless, and they don't take kindly to those who seek the truth. What do you mean? I asked, my heart racing. What truth? She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. The past holds powerful secrets. You must tread carefully, for those who wish to silence you are already watching. Ryan stood protectively in front of me, his body tense. Who's watching? What do you know? Her gaze shifted to him, and for a moment it felt as if time stood still. You both have awakened something that was meant to stay buried. The curse has teeth, and it will not rest until it claims what it desires. I felt a surge of panic. What do we do? How can we protect ourselves? Knowledge is your only shield, she replied cryptically. But be warned, knowledge comes at a price. With that, she turned and left as abruptly as she had arrived, leaving us in a thick silence. I glanced at Ryan, who looked equally unsettled. What the hell was that about? I whispered. I don't know, but we need to be careful, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. We can't let fear control us, but we also can't ignore the danger that's closing in. As the days passed, an unsettling feeling settled in my gut. Each moment felt heavier, as if the shadows were creeping closer, suffocating me with their presence. We spent hours researching, piecing together fragments of my family's history, but each revelation only deepened the mystery. The more we learned, the more the lines between my past and present blurred. One evening, as I pored over the old diary I had found, a chilling realization washed over me. Ryan, I said, my voice shaky, there's a passage here. It talks about the night my grandmother disappeared. It mentions a sacrifice, a blood sacrifice. Ryan leaned closer, his brow furrowed. A blood sacrifice? That's serious. I swallowed hard, the weight of the words sinking in. What if that's what's been happening all along? What if someone is trying to fulfill that requirement, using me as a pawn? Then we need to figure out who's behind it, Ryan said, determination sparking in his eyes. We can't let them succeed. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I tossed and turned, unable to find peace. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house, jolting me awake. My heart raced as I sat up, straining to hear anything beyond the silence. Ryan, I called, panic bubbling to the surface. He rushed into my room, his expression serious. What happened? I heard something. It sounded like it came from downstairs, I said, my voice trembling. Stay here, he instructed, grabbing a flashlight before heading down the hallway. I followed closely behind, my heart pounding in my chest. As we reached the living room, the sight that greeted us sent a chill down my spine. The front door lay wide open, swinging gently on its hinges. No one's here, Ryan said, scanning the area. But this doesn't feel right. Just then, I caught a glimpse of movement outside. A shadow slipped past the edge of the porch, and a cold wave of dread washed over me. Someone's out there, I whispered. Ryan turned to me, his expression grim. We need to call the police. But just as I reached for my phone, I felt a rush of cold air, followed by an oppressive darkness enveloping the room. The shadows twisted and morphed, and I could hear whispers, frantic, desperate voices echoing in my mind. Emily, Ryan shouted, pulling me back to reality. Focus, we have to get out of here. I nodded, shaking off the fear that threatened to consume me. Together, we bolted for the door, but before we could reach it, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, menacing presence that seemed to absorb the light around it. Leave while you can, it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down my spine. What do you want? Ryan demanded, stepping protectively in front of me. The truth is not yours to uncover, the figure replied, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. You will pay for your curiosity. I felt my heart race as the darkness closed in. We won't back down, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. We're not afraid of you. The figure let out a low, mocking laugh. Fear is your greatest enemy, and soon you will understand the price of your defiance. With that, it vanished into the shadows, leaving us standing in the eerie silence of the living room. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead, my breath coming in quick gasps. What just happened? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ryan's jaw tightened as he shook his head. I don't know, but we have to figure this out before it's too late. As we stood there, adrenaline coursing through our veins, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The shadows were closing in, and I could sense that someone or something was determined to silence us. The truth was within reach, but so was the darkness that sought to swallow us whole. The air in the dimly lit basement weighed heavily, a thick fog of dread enveloping me as I faced the spirit looming before us. Its form flickered like a candle in the wind, a ghastly reminder of the dark past I had been unraveling. Ryan stood beside me, his eyes fierce yet filled with concern. I could feel the tension pulsing between us, a mix of fear and determination. The room felt charged, as if the very walls were alive, eager to witness the confrontation that was about to unfold. Emily, Ryan whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. We need to stand our ground. Whatever happens, we face it together. I nodded, swallowing hard, trying to steady my racing heart. What does it want from us? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The spirit's eyes, if they could be called that, bore into my soul, searching for something. Perhaps my weaknesses, perhaps my fears. You know why I'm here, it hissed, its voice a chilling echo that reverberated off the stone walls. You carry the weight of your lineage. Your choices will determine the fate of your bloodline. What do you mean? I demanded, stepping forward, emboldened by a surge of defiance. I want to break this cycle of pain and suffering. I want to know the truth. Truth? The spirit scoffed, a cold breeze swirling around us as it manifested more clearly, revealing a visage that resembled my grandmother, but twisted by rage and sorrow. Your truth is but a shadow of the past. The secrets buried beneath the surface will consume you if you let them. Ryan shifted closer to me, his presence a comforting anchor amidst the chaos. We're not afraid of you, he declared, his voice stronger now. We found your secrets, and we're here to confront them. The spirit laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. You think you can confront me? You are but a child playing with the flames of a raging fire. Your mother tried to hide the truth, and look where that led her. Leave my mother out of this, I shouted back, feeling a rush of anger. She did what she thought was right, and I won't let you twist her choices into something evil. The spirit's expression shifted, its eyes narrowing. She sacrificed much to keep the darkness at bay, but now the darkness has come to collect its due. What do you want? I pleaded, desperation seeping into my voice. What is it that you demand from me? I demand a choice, it replied, its tone suddenly solemn. You can save him, it gestured toward Ryan, or you can uncover the truth about your family's legacy. But know this, in choosing one, you forsake the other. Emily, don't listen to it, Ryan urged, his voice laced with urgency. We can find another way. We can work together. I felt the weight of the spirit's words pressing down on me. The idea of losing Ryan, of losing the only person who had stood by me through this nightmare, was unbearable. Yet the truth, my family's dark history, lingered in the shadows, beckoning me to uncover it. I can't let you take him, I said, my voice breaking. I won't make that choice. The spirit's laughter echoed again, a taunting sound that sent shivers down my spine. You may think you're strong, but the blood that runs through your veins is steeped in sacrifice and betrayal. You are destined to repeat the mistakes of your ancestors. No, I screamed, feeling anger and sorrow collide within me. I refuse to be a pawn in this twisted game. I will find a way to save us both. As I spoke, a glimmer of light flickered in the darkness, a sliver of hope amidst the despair. The moment felt fragile, like glass on the brink of shattering. I turned to Ryan, meeting his gaze. "We can break the cycle. Together. Emily," he said softly, his hand clenching mine tightly. "I believe in you. We can find the truth and confront whatever darkness lies ahead. But you must trust yourself." In that moment, a surge of clarity washed over me. The spirit's power was strong, but it thrived on fear and despair. If I could harness the strength of my lineage, I might be able to turn the tide. "I choose to confront the truth," I declared, my voice steady. "I will not let the past dictate my future." The spirit's expression shifted, confusion etching itself across its face. "You dare defy me," it spat, fury lacing its words. "Yes," I affirmed, feeling my resolve solidify. "I am not my grandmother. I am not my mother. I am Emily, and I will forge my own path." Suddenly, the basement trembled, the walls shaking as shadows danced around us. The spirit screeched, its form flickering violently. "You cannot escape your fate." "I'm not trying to escape," I shouted back, my heart racing. "I'm embracing it. I will take the pain and the darkness, but I will not let it consume me." As if my words had struck a chord, the spirit lunged forward, its presence overwhelming. But instead of retreating in fear, I stood firm, calling upon the strength that coursed through my veins. "I am the key to breaking this cycle. I will not let my family's past chain me." In that moment, a blinding light erupted from within me, illuminating the room and pushing the spirit back. It howled in rage, but I stood my ground, feeling the power of my ancestors surging through me. "I choose to break the curse. I choose hope over despair." The spirit writhed against the light, its form beginning to dissolve. "You will regret this," it screamed, but I could feel its power waning. "Maybe," I replied, my voice stronger now, "but I won't live in fear anymore." As the spirit vanished, the basement fell silent. The oppressive weight lifted, leaving me breathless. I turned to Ryan, who looked at me with a mix of awe and relief. "Emily, you did it. You faced it." "I had to," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "But it's not over. The truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered." Ryan took a step closer, his expression serious. "And we will uncover it, together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it side by side." I felt a warmth spread through me at his words, a spark of hope igniting my spirit. Yes, I had chosen the truth, but I had also chosen to embrace the bond we shared. "Together," I echoed, a smile breaking through the remnants of fear. But as I looked around the basement, a flicker of doubt whispered in my mind. The shadows still danced at the edges of my vision, and I knew that the darkness was not entirely gone. The truth about my family's past loomed ahead, a winding path filled with uncertainty. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows held more secrets, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves once again. The night may have ended, but the journey had just begun.